As you might have guessed, this is the 5th episode of the series, and it begins with some ship that's in jeopardy and a disagreement of what they should be doing. Something or nothing. The ship is disintegrating subatomically. They don't know why, since, there are a bunch of people on a hijacked prison ship. Dargo's the most insistent on not getting involved, until they pick up the distress signal of the escaping capsule. Then he insists that they bring him aboard. He and Crichton pull the pair off, but when Crichton goes back to make sure no one else is aboard, he touches something that, to be fair, he really should have known not to. He gets kerblabbled, is the only word that fits. After the titles, there's concern that there might be more trapped on that ship.
Not anymore.
It really didn't call for a smile, my man. They start discussing things with the survivors.
Half the shuttle's power conduits had ruptured. I've shut those circuits down.
I'm getting a weird Twi'lek cat vibe off this lady. Once it's established Aaron is not working for the Peacekeepers, the dude who seems to be in charge says that their cargo is scientific equipment for studying deep space gravitational fluctuations. For the lulz. Well, soon... Yeah, that. Aaron sees something funky just happen to Crichton and thinks maybe it's a good time to get a little rest before he does something weird even for him. Rigel is concerned about the matter of payment for this hospitality of rescuing them and bringing them to their destination, but Dargo has been unusually insistent on treating them with borderline reverence.
My friends are Elonic, genetic cousins to the Luxons.
Kissing cousins the way Dargo looks at her. While giving dinner to the science guy, he admits to how they acquired Moya and tries to confess to his crime, but if it wasn't treason, then it doesn't matter to him. He's more concerned about the war back home against the Scorvians, an unprovoked attack on his people. The Luxons are their allies in this fight. They have a mutual defense treaty, though I imagine they're glad for the chance to kick some ass. Dargo often seems inclined that way. So does Twi'lek Lady when Aaron wants to check out that box that Crichton got kerblabbled by earlier. Dargo breaks it up and tells Aaron to stay out from now on. This is his episode, damn it. Aaron expresses her concern. This is hardly the place for a couple of scientists to go in the middle of a war, especially for something as mundane as studying deep space gravitational fluctuations. But Crichton's distracted by another vision of Twi'lek Lady tossing him around, though it's hard to tell if this is violence or amorous. And I'm being serious. It really can go either way.
John, hold still. You'll like this.
See what I mean?
What is the matter with him?
He's Crichton.
Is there a treatment for that? Dargo speaks to Scientissimo about her, and he says, hey, she just helps me out. You want to take your shot? Go ahead, big guy. She comes in and starts flirting over what Dargo had been working on until Crichton blunders in.
Dargo!
Oh. Hi.
Friend, Crichton.
Now we know something is wrong. That's the equivalent to the parent using your full name. Crichton takes Dargo aside. He's thinking that maybe this weirdness is some kind of pheromone at work. He finally explains that he's having weird flashes, but Dargo figures Crichton is just having fantasies and tells him to knock it off. She's his tentacled freaky deaky. After Dargo storms off, Crichton sees Aaron, asks him something, and then she comes up and asks him that thing. He's a little put off by the knowledge that he hasn't been hallucinating things. He's been glimpsing the future. So he heads off to see if he can make it happen, and sees the old guy hunched over his desk, murdered. This is really not Crichton's day. Paralyzed, ass whooped, whatever the hell this is. No wonder he had issues around that gun. He tries to stop Dargo before they both get their necks snapped, but he won't listen. He thinks it's a ruse to get her tentacled ass all to himself. The fact that guy's fine doesn't help Crichton's case, or his concern about his sanity. And he's practically tripping over himself when he sees Aaron is taking her down to the cargo bay for some sparring. I think that's a euphemism. Not for lesbian stuff. I mean for wanting to push each other in a sort of locking antlers kind of way. Did that sound lesbian too? Forget it. Anyway, Zan is concerned and tells Rigel this big girl is making odd groaning sounds now that she's inside her. Oh, damn it. Twi'lek girl basically puts down Aaron's intelligence that peacekeeper women know fighting because they don't need to know anything important like she does. Aaron demonstrates that even if it's true, this is the kind of place where having those skills matters more than knowing the difference between neutrons and neutrinos. After repeatedly beating the shit out of her, Aaron gets that strike to the chest that Crichton got in his vision earlier that puts her down in a sort of paralyzed state. So with her dealt with, our villainess heads back, only for Zan to start asking questions. She seems to think that Moya's strange groaning sounds might be a hint of something about to hit her like the way it hit that ship. That's brushed aside, so Zan asks the science dude.
In fact, I doubt that Moya's phase imbalance actually exists. Probably a sensor synapse out of calibration.
Do we need to change your batteries because you're starting to run down? As for Crichton, he's thinking about preventing the events in his visions from happening, which is good because he's having a repeat of the one where the old guy is found dead with a knife in the back. He catches her three-finger paralyzed attack only to get kicked in the guts. Good principle, needs some fine-tuning. Meanwhile, Dargo is being let in on the obvious, that clearly they were out here working on a new weapon for the massive war. It needs a containment field, which it had at the moment on that pod, but naturally Dargo is concerned about the threat to Moya. Also that they didn't trust him because of his time as a prisoner, but he's earned their trust enough to be brought in so he can help. The weapon is so important to the war effort that regardless of the risks to Moya, they need to see it gets back so they can fuck their shit up, if I may be technical. Meanwhile, Crichton has told Zan about his premonitions. He needs a sympathetic ear.
I don't know what the game is.
He doesn't make it easy. On hearing about the technobabble that Moya is fine, Crichton thinks questioning the old guy will crack open why they're going to get their necks broken. Well, the guy's not there, but she is. Knowing she's dangerous, Crichton takes up something to protect himself, and the moment Dargo walks in, she takes a dive to make it look like Crichton's the aggressor, that he would expose them unless she gave him a tentacle job. Dargo stabs him through the gut, only to then get murdered by her. Luckily, it was all another vision.
I just did. I changed the future and I made it worse.
What do you have against that mask? Aaron arrives to explain that Twi'lek girl's actually Scorvian, the enemy. She's surprised Crichton would know about that neural strike. Naturally, this man is unlikely to know obscure alien combat techniques if he's just learning how the toothbrushes work. Crichton insists that Dargo is convinced that these two are on some angelic mission and won't want to listen to anything like, she's a surgically altered monster who will kill us all, except me because you'll do that yourself. So you're saying there's an upside. So we're going to bring Dargo away to work on that technical problem Moya has, only Crichton sees the Scorvian has been delaying him, trying to convince them that he should join in the war on their side, and apparently backs it up with a hand job. Finally, they go on their way so Crichton can talk to the science guy who doesn't want to listen, though Crichton does have that effect on people out here. Well, when Crichton explains he's been having these flashes ever since he got kerblabbled, now the science guy gets it. He says there's a quantum singularity on board.
A black hole.
A minute particle of 1 yes.
Just for kicks, if you wanted to say that it was a black hole the size of a minute particle, say a speck of dust, it'd have a mass about that of the moon, which would be pretty nifty. Crichton is aghast that such a fantastic thing would be used as a weapon, but it's going to have to wait, because Dargo and the spy return. This time, she chest taps Dargo to put him down, takes his sword, and shoots the guy so she can take his research. Aaron arrives just in the nick of time to screw things up. Moya implodes just like the other ship did, and Crichton finds himself back with Zan holding the mask. Hopefully he won't drop it this time. Interesting strategy, Bob. Let's see if it works out for him.
Says he is experiencing the future.
The future?
You can barely function in the present.
Can't say he hasn't earned that. If you're wondering, I think the reason why he does this is because previously, everything that happened to the mask was done by accident. He's saying this time, everything he does is going to be deliberate. No more accidents. Nothing is left to chance. Admittedly, this time I'm going to screw things up on purpose isn't the best rallying cry. So he lays out that all the obvious suggestions fail. And they fail because Dargo does not accept that he's on the wrong side until it's too late. Fortunately, though, they hit upon one thing they know about Dargo. The one thing he loves even more than that Scorvian is...
But could you speak to Rigel?
Now what's he done?
He has presented a bill for the rescue and transportation of our guests.
kicking Rigel's ass. While Dargo heads off, the science guy solves a crucial part of the weapons problem, hopefully enough to stop imploding inside Moya anyway. Dargo is proving a hard one to convince, so Crichton sends the other two out to tell Dargo something that he'll know Crichton could not know. That Dargo is not here for the crime he said he was, but something far worse, because Crichton heard him tell her in the future. Spoilers, Crichton, spoilers. A ship approaches, but it might be disguised, so Dargo says to contact them and see whether or not they answer, since they will clearly be Scorvian and not surgically altered like her. Sure enough, there's a communication malfunction that prevents visuals. So we're going to have to do some fancy piloting and some fancy footwork since the baddie pulls a blade on the old guy. So Dargo disarms to save him. That worked out well. Dargo retrieves the gun, but she gets out, and Crichton has to stop Dargo to make sure he doesn't lose his temper, shoot the pod, and kill them all. I think we're all out of free lives now. With his dying act, the old guy activates the weapon remotely, and Moya has to starburst away to avoid getting sucked into that green shit. There's an uncomfortable coda between Crichton and Dargo. Crichton kind of plays a bit of an asshole, to be honest. Though stepping on that mask kind of set that timeline in motion. Shocker by now, but I'm giving this one a stamp of fine. It's not surprising, really. The show is establishing itself, and its dynamic is still being felt out. Not to mention the absence of the ongoing players that will so shape events. These are those early notes. Premiere was that powerful opening chord. These are the notes that follow that are quiet and set the tone and give a place to grow from. The musical foundation, that's the reason that the big power moment of that song can be the big power moment, if you follow the analogy. It's a different twist on the time loop idea here. Instead of repeating the present, we're repeating the future as it gets closer. It's an interesting idea. The episode pulls Crichton back to the center after being a bit more ancillary last time. Most scenes involve him in one way or another. This pushes Aaron and Zan to the edges, Rigel almost to absence, and Pilot's pretty much just the occasional voice piping in. Well, now that we have our foundation, let's kick it up a notch by leaping forward to the episode that puts the direction of things in motion. It's A Human Reaction.
You don't want to suck that. That's the potty tentacle.